Okay, I'm gonna start now. So, hello everyone, welcome to Scienceholic's 2023 webinar, A Journey into the World of Chemistry. Thank you so much for your interest in today's session about From Molecules to Medicine, the fantastic fusion of chemistry and pre-medical marvels. My name is Sabrina and I'm the host of today's webinar. Thomas will be the co-host and he'll be helping out in the chat. Before we start, let me give a brief introduction of what Scienceholic is. So, we are a young nonprofit that aims to introduce intricate scientific concepts in a manner that is fun and comprehensible to teens. We also provide volunteer and leadership opportunities to teens all over the world, including those who have English as their second language. Our main mission is to serve as a free resource for students to learn more about various STEM topics. Other than this webinar, we have published seasonal magazines. Our most recent one is published in April, and it's a biology-themed magazine, which is out 7th edition. You can check it out in our website after this webinar. And without further ado, please welcome Riya Patel again. Would you mind introducing yourself to us?
Yeah, so I'm Riya. I'm a third year student at St. Mary's University studying biology on the pre-med track. And in the future, I hope to become a physician, specifically in pediatric oncology. And one fun fact about me is that I like to do bullet journaling and calligraphy.
Thank you so much for the introduction. And um, attendees, this is just a reminder to put your questions in the chat. I will try to bring it up when it's appropriate, but if not, we will try to cover it at the end. Thank you so much. So let's start. The first few questions will be about academics first. What made you interested in chemistry and pre-med?
So I got drawn to chemistry because it helps us understand about how things work at a tiny level. So like how our bodies basically function. So pre-med is something that interests me because it's about using like the understanding of how our body functions to help people when they're sick, like how doctors do. And so it's exciting to learn about these things and think about how we can actually make a difference in people's lives. And yeah.
Thank you. What were some challenges that you faced during school?
So during school, I feel like one of my major challenges was like with determination. So I had a really hard time managing my time like effectively. So like balancing the coursework, assignments, and all the extracurriculars can feel overwhelming sometimes, especially like when I was a freshman, I kind of saw all the opportunities out there and I was like, I'm gonna do this and this. But overall, like it's kind of hard to balance your time, especially as you start to enter courses that are like more advanced like math and science, and it takes more effort for you to try and like grab those concepts, I guess. And then another thing that I've been facing as a challenge is like social interactions, so like trying to navigate friendships and like group dynamics. So I feel like it takes a lot to like try and find better time management and also like asking for help from like your peers and your teachers, but over time like I gained confidence in that, I guess. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree that's hard to balance between
Mhm.
times sometimes. And thank you. What appeals to you about being a physician?
So I'm very detail oriented. So like I like pointing out the specific details and things and like trying to figure it out. So I'll tell like a quick story. So when I was in seventh grade, we got the opportunity to become like practicing physicians. So we got to put on a little lab coat and they had all the desks set up like examination tables. And basically we had our friends and like all the theater kids come in and act as if they were patients and they would present to them like themselves with symptoms. And then we would have to try and diagnose based on this case report we had done before. And so I really liked like finding all the little details and actually like putting them together and kind of trying to solve it like a puzzle, I guess. And so I feel like a lot of people say like they want to be a physician because it helps people. And obviously like that's one of the main like motivations for me, but also I think like with the skill set that I have as being detail oriented, I think that's something that like I'm very curious about and I like to put things together like a puzzle. So yeah.
That's nice. Have you had any hands-on experience in the medical field, and what did you learn from them?
So in ninth grade, I worked at a hospital. I worked on the labor and delivery unit, and I discharged like mothers and saw their babies and all that kind of stuff. From that, since I was a ninth grader, like I was really young, I learned a lot about the hospital system. I also helped like restock some of the things in patients' rooms. And so I got a lot of patient interaction. So I got to actually sit down and like with the older patients, I got to sit down and kind of play board games with them when they were bored and do things like that. So I think in that sense, I had a lot of experience on how the hospital environment is, as well as how you can like cheer up patients. And one of the things I learned is that doctors and nurses usually just go in and out of patients' rooms. There's not much time for like them to have some kind of person to bond with. So I was like at that time as a volunteer, I was one of those people that could actually like talk to them and make them feel comforted. So that was one experience. And then over my time, I know COVID like played a big role, but I was able to gain a few shadowing opportunities, and I know that's like very difficult, especially because of HIPAA regulations. But instead of shadowing in like a hospital environment or shadowing a doctor, I was able to shadow more like dentists and like PT, OT, that kind of thing. And I was able to learn a lot more about how healthcare works in general, not just medicine in terms of the hospital aspect. And so from there, I was also able to learn about the technical things like anatomy and stuff like that, just in a different way.
That's great. Um, the next question, what is one thing you really hope to achieve in the healthcare system in your career?
Mhm. So right now, I'm mainly focused on wanting to go into pediatric oncology, and this is a cause that I've been very interested in throughout my high school career, I guess. I've had a lot of family members like close to me who have been diagnosed with cancer, and I think pediatrics is something that I've always wanted to go in. I love working with little kids. But over time, I became the advocate for the National Pediatric Cancer Foundation, and that's where I learned that only 4% of drugs that are made against cancer are used to help children that have cancer, and the rest won't apply to them because of their high dosages and things like that. So I think one of the things that's like kind of small, but a lot of people don't recognize because pediatric cancer happens to like almost every 14 kids in like I think it's like a minute or so. Um, it's pretty widespread, but there's not enough drugs developed for it. So I think that's something that I might like to go into in the future.
Yeah, and I learned something new today too. 4%.
Mhm.
What's your favorite thing about St. Mary's?
Okay, so St. Mary's is a very small school, and I come from Austin, so I'm really close to UT. But St. Mary's was like one of the last schools that I applied to, thinking that like I'm probably gonna go to public school. But then I came here and I toured, and I found out that it's a very close-knit community. So it feels just like a high school environment, except bigger, but in the sense that I'm able to have that connection between my teachers and actually ask them questions, and they know me by name. And I think one of my favorite things is that like the professors actually do care about you. Like one time I like slept in and I like was running to class and my teacher like I went 30 minutes late even though because I love that teacher, but I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna go 30 minutes late, it's gonna be fine. And I went in and he was like, we were literally just talking about you, like where were you? And so I feel like the fact that the professor actually knows me by name and then like can able to like have that connection with him, I think that's like one of the best things about St. Mary's is that I can actually be in connection with my professors.
That's nice. Um, so now the questions will be based on some general advice. What are some tips for studying chemistry? Because we know that
Okay.
biochemistry and organic
Yeah.
chemistry can be intimidating.
Okay, so I'm taking biochemistry right now, so I might not have like help for that because I just started the school year, but organic chemistry was rough. It was a lot. I took OChem 1 in like the past summer, like 2 summers ago, I guess. And then I took a gap semester and then I went back to OChem. So that was difficult, but I feel like I say OChem 2 was harder for me just because I took it at the university level versus community college level. But in terms of studying, especially for OChem, I really recommend like using a whiteboard and actually sitting down, writing out the reaction mechanisms because it's a lot of memorization. And until you don't get that down, like by writing it down or some way, like you have to practice these problems. And it's hard to like gain like the knowledge that you need to apply for it. And it was really hard for me to see in 3D. So like for OChem 1 was a lot about like conceptual knowledge. And so I had to like actually buy a model kit and sit there and build out molecules and actually understand like, okay, this is where this is happening. And then with OChem 2, it's more like reaction mechanisms and what happens to proteins and all that kind of stuff. And so that was all like the whiteboard really helped me like draw out everything and I just kept practicing. I think going to your professor really helps because I was doing really bad in OChem 2 at the beginning of the semester. But over time, like I decided that okay, I'll go to my professor and I'll ask for questions. And I mean, even if I didn't have any questions and I just sat in his office and like observed other kids explain or ask questions, I think that really helped me too. So I feel like your professor is like the best point of contact. But also I use like the Khan Academy chemistry and I use Mastering OChem, I think it's called. There's a website that draws out all your reaction mechanisms. And another thing I did for OChem was I create a study guide like with all the reaction mechanisms on there. And yeah, I think that's basically it.
Thank you. And how do you balance your academic workload and extracurricular activities to maintain a healthy lifestyle?
Okay, so this is kind of difficult, especially like if you're a freshman, you're going in, you see all these clubs that are like happening in the world and or like happening in the campus and you're like, okay, like I don't know like which ones to join, and then you end up joining all of them or you take up too much responsibility. And then you're like, oh no, like I have so much work to do now. Because at the first few weeks, when all the clubs seem like, oh, like that's so cool. But then, and you don't have that much work. So you're like, oh yeah, I can join all of that. And then you kind of take too much on yourself. So I think one of the best ways to balance like academic workload, especially in pre-med, is that like you need to learn that you need to have breaks. Because I know like the first few semesters, I was just like constantly working like for 2 hours straight or like 3 hours straight and just keep going. But one of my friends actually taught me that like I need to sit down and actually just take a break, like do whatever I want for like at least 5, 10 minutes, maybe an hour. Like it's okay to take a whole day as a break as well. Um, so I think that also I do a lot of time blocking, or I did last semester. So but that basically is that you take like your Google Calendar or whatever, and you basically block out all the time, like time slots in your life. So you say like, okay, from this time to this time, I'm gonna wake up. From this time to this time, I'm gonna go get ready. This time to this time, I'm gonna eat. So like you basically put it all together, and then that helped me manage a lot of my time and it was like flexible, so I left some space for like me just having a break or me calling my parents, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I personally like a schedule too.
Mhm.
How do you approach building strong relationships with professors and mentors in the pre-med field?
So with professors, I mean, I kind of the first day of school, I know it's kind of scary to sit in the front, but I always go and sit in the front just to make sure that like, I can have that like direct eye-to-eye contact. And then after class, I usually go and ask a question, like even if it's like something stupid, I'll be like, like I think this is like something that I should know, but I just didn't get it in class. And then by like going there, also going to office hours, I think that's how I was able to build those relationships with my professors. Also, I'd email them if I had any questions, that kind of thing. And then with mentors, I either reach out to people that are senior to me, so like anyone that's in the grades above me. But now, since I'm like a upperclassman, it's harder for me to find those kind of people that are older than me that have gone through the experience. So I reach out on LinkedIn to a lot of like people that are in the programs that I would like to be in, or like on Instagram, like they have a lot of pre-med Instagrams out there. And so I go through those and I kind of like ask, like, hey, I have a question with this, or like, hey, I would like to go into this program later. Can you tell me about how your experiences with it is? That kind of thing.
That's nice. Thank you. Are there any recommendation of activities for students who may be interested in following a path similar to yours?
Okay, so I know like after COVID, it's been very difficult to find activities to do. I ended up transitioning a lot to like online type thing. So I did like a lot of hackathons and that kind of stuff. And even though like hackathons have a lot to do with coding, there's some hackathons which are like strictly like public health or like healthcare and business. And so I feel like you can do anything. Like if you want to go into pre-med, there's a lot of ways you can get there. You can like, for example, like there's clubs like HOSA and all that kind of stuff that I was able to like join and actually be part of as a like as a pre-med, but or as a future pre-med. And then there's also clubs like FBLA and that kind of stuff like that have relation to do with business. And that's where I was able to do like healthcare administration, learn more about insurance policies, but that's still applied to health. And so I feel like even if you can't get like the main stuff like shadowing and all that kind of stuff, although that's very good, like if you can, or like clinical experience, like a scribe or whatever, you can still find ways online to try and like expand your community and like find different opportunities for you to compete or do things like that.
Thank you. What's your one biggest advice for a pre-med student?
Okay, so I know I said this before, but you can do anything that you want to do. Like, you should do anything that you want to do from within. Like, if that makes you happy, there's going to be a way for you to relate that to pre-med. So just like go out there and actually do what makes you happy. And I know that's like kind of cliche, but it's true. Like, if you're passionate about something, you're gonna be able to talk about it more and explain it to someone, and like that passion's gonna shine through. And so I think that's one of the biggest things that I say, like, especially in the pre-med world, people like compare themselves to each other and they're like, oh my God, like this person's so much better than me. They're gonna become like this and this. But in reality, it's like everyone's on the same page and you like what makes you unique is what the things that you like to do, you know? So
Yeah,
yeah.
thank you. So now we have some questions, and if you have some questions, can you please put it in the chat and we'll go over them now. Oh, sorry. There's a question from Emma. How were you able to get real life experiences?
Okay, so as I said before, it was really hard with COVID to get like actual in-person real life experiences. But now things are starting to open up a little bit more. And so in terms of my shadowing opportunities, I was able to get those through like family friends. So I had a family friend who was a pediatric dentist, and I was like, hey, like, could I come in and join on that? But also I was able to ask my own physicians. So like I asked my grandparents' podiatrist, I think, and I was able to shadow him for a bit. And I know that's not like straight up like doctor, you know, but like it's like still in the medical profession, the healthcare profession. And then I was able to shadow my own dentist as well. And so like I think people that you know or can put in a good word for you, you can ask them about real life experiences. Also, I think like I mean other real life experiences I didn't really get, but I feel like if you go into clubs and stuff, a lot of clubs nowadays are having like community service events and things like that with organizations. So like right now at in college I work with an organization called Big Love Cancer Care, and we're able to make little cancer care baskets for kids who are sick with cancer, and we can go and actually go into the hospital and give those baskets to them. So that's something that's been interesting. But yeah.
Thank you. Mm, are there any more questions? Okay, then this is the end of the webinar, and these are all of Scienceholic's social medias, and please give us a follow if you are interested. YouTube is where we will publish this recording of the webinar, and you can also find it on our website. and attendees. If you're interested in working with us, here's some various ways you can. So there are 6 teams, and I am in the outreach team. You can also submit an article to be published. If you want a low commitment way to help us, you can become an ambassador. Lastly, please join our mailing list for updates on new articles and magazine releases and webinar updates. Here are all of our partners for the webinar, as well as the magazine that's coming out very soon in September. Please note that there are 2 volumes of chemistry themed magazine this time. Please stay tuned for that. And again, thank you all so much for attending the webinar. And Riya, thank you for your time again. We will see you guys hopefully for the next webinar at 8:30 later on today. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.